Vivienne Westwood. My grandmother is a global fashion icon. My grandmother invented punk. She invented attitude. She invented safety pins through your nose and graffiti on pictures of the Queen. My grandmother loves sex. She loves sex so much she named her business after it. My grandmother loves sex, and she's amazing. My grandmother, who is Vivienne Westwood, has 7 billion ideas a minute. Half of her ideas are in the ground, half of her ideas are in the sky, and my grandmother conducted them into whole-bodied, warm-throated orchestras of fantastic ideas, as if she is God and it is Judgment Day. My grandmother has orange hair, gold-rimmed spectacles, and a voice you don't often hear on television. My grandmother sighs loudly during the boring bits at the theatre. If Vivienne Westwood becomes steady in the morning, the people of the entire land will eat abundant bread. If Vivienne Westwood rises in the morning and her light is terrifying, there will be massacre in the land. If Vivienne Westwood flickers like fire, then weakness of cattle. If Vivienne Westwood reaches the secret place, then the future is favourable. If Vivienne Westwood becomes visible in the west, reaches the secret place and then disappears, there will be a flood of dragonflies. My grandmother is not an animal. My grandmother is not a serpent, not a beast of the skies. She is not a sea creature. She is not a ghost. She is not a spirit. My grandmother is not a metaphor. My grandmother is not an idea that you can understand by thinking about her. My grandmother does not guard a cave, nor does she breathe fire, nor does she interpret dreams. My grandmother cannot tell you your true name. She cannot cast a spell and watch your enemies suffer. My grandmother cannot stop her knuckles from swelling. My grandmother cannot walk without a mobility aid. My grandmother, who is Vivienne Westwood, cannot be seen underwater. When she is underwater, my grandmother is sensed. She is felt. She is blended with the energy of the ocean. My grandmother's shape cannot be measured in only 4 dimensions. My grandmother, who is Vivienne Westwood, cannot be represented as notes on a page. She cannot be captured in a lightning sketch. She cannot be seen by people who have darkness in their hearts. If Vivienne Westwood wears the crown of the moon, a city of world dominion will be seized by fraud. If Vivienne Westwood stands in the horn of the moon, the land that experienced evil will experience sin. If Vivienne Westwood stands in the breast of the middle of the moon, brother will become hostile to brother. If Vivienne Westwood stands inside the moon, the land will be dispersed, the dynasty will change, women will fall by means of weapons, dogs will become rabid and bite people. If Vivienne Westwood rises in the moon and has a beard, demons will seize infants. My grandmother, who is Vivienne Westwood, is really tall. My grandmother, who is Vivienne Westwood, is giant and statuesque. My grandmother, who is Vivienne Westwood, is giant, statuesque, and she knows things. My grandmother sharpens all of her pencils. My grandmother moisturises all of her skin. My grandmother looks really good in all of her photographs. My grandmother moves like a dancer. My grandmother dances so well that the shadows applaud her. My grandmother dances so well that the moon makes an effort to shine on her when it hears her high heels clicking down the street. Vivienne Westwood rises in the breast of the moon. There is sweet song, sweet wind in the land. Vivian Westwood rises in the breast of the moon and flickers. Enemies make peace. The crop of the land flourishes. The entire land has fine food to eat. Vivian Westwood stands inside the moon, and here is a flood of dragonflies. My grandmother, who is Vivian Westwood, flickers with dim light and experiences sin. My grandmother reaches the secret place with sharp pencils and an orchestra of fantastic ideas. My grandmother is used to being observed by strangers. My grandmother is swelling imperceptibly to you and me. My grandmother is swelling until her skin loses its stretch and releases her soul to the energy of the ocean. My grandmother is not interested in your cynical interpretation of this process. My grandmother is going to backflip into the kitchen one last time.